My name is Moon Petrie, and I am pansexual. Of course, when I was figuring that out in the 90s, I had never heard that term. And so I identified as bisexual. And it is only in the last few years that I have encountered this new terminology. A lot of people see bisexual as an umbrella term that can include a binary bisexuality, multi-sexuality that acknowledges multiple genders but is not necessarily attracted to all genders, and pansexuality, which is, in my personal definition, when gender simply doesn't play a role in whether you find someone attractive. I literally don't understand the experience of people who have never seen someone, thought they were cute, but hadn't realized what gender they were yet. That doesn't happen to everyone. So I wanted to talk about representation of bisexual or pansexual characters in books. Now, bisexual representation or pan representation is almost non-existent, which is really sad, especially when I think of teenagers who maybe didn't have as easy a road through dealing with all of it as I did. So I am currently somewhere around halfway through a draft of a new book, and my main character identifies as pansexual. Her name is Autumn. I just have Autumn as the main character and characters of other sexualities as side characters and not POV characters, because I wanted to speak from a position where I felt like I knew what I was talking about. I did want to include representation of other characters who were part of the LGBTQIA plus community, but I didn't feel like it's my place to speak for them or through them. I feel like there are two really critical kinds of representation in general, especially when it comes to LGBTQIA plus people or people with intersectional identities, where they are of a racial or ethnic minority as well, or have a disability. And I feel like the primary thing that we need to do is amplify the voices of those who have these experiences themselves. And that's why I chose to make a character whose sexuality aligns with my own. Own voices representation can give a much deeper, more real understanding of what it's like to live these lives than anyone from another demographic could possibly give if their POV character was, for example, pansexual and the author wasn't. Future Moon here, editing and realizing I wasn't clear enough about something I think is really important. So if you're writing an adventure story, science fiction, a mystery, or like me, a portal fantasy where teenagers are solving a mystery and finding a way into another world, your characters can be any sort of sexuality, whether or not it reflects your own. No one is going to find that disrespectful. Where it really stands out to me is when your story is about the process of coming to terms with one's own sexuality. Many of us are going to be much more interested and find it much more respectful if you're writing about your own sexuality. That doesn't mean that straight people should only ever write straight characters. The other kind of really critical representation that I think we need is widespread visibility. Is everyone acknowledging that there's more to humanity than those people who have gotten the best representation? I think that widespread visibility matters most to those who have had the least representation, and that, in my opinion, includes bi, pan, trans, and ace characters. I legit cannot think of any book with ace representation, so let me know if you know of one. I would be really interested. What little representation there is of bi or pan characters in books, or especially in movies, tends to reinforce stereotypes, especially the stereotype of promiscuity. Now, the fact that someone is not automatically unattractive because of their gender does not mean that everyone is attractive. I have been married for a long time, so promiscuity is just not a facet of bisexuality or pansexuality. It's just another thing that can intersect with any number of other things. And most bi or pan people are not polyamorous. So I write YA. I think that the thing that matters the most to me in terms of what I am creating is being respectful of actual young people. So I have some quotes here from real life teenagers. The first person said, I don't know, I think the thing you've got to avoid is queer baiting. So if you're not familiar with the term, check out Rowan Ellis's videos. She's fantastic. But the bottom line is, queer baiting is when a piece of media attempts to engage queer audiences by hinting that there may be LGBTQIA plus characters or scenarios in their media, but making sure not to alienate narrow-minded straight audiences by actually including any. So this is when you see tension of a romantic or sexual nature between same-sex characters that never turns into anything. I'm sure you can think of 1,000 examples off the top of your head right now. I think that the best way to avoid queer baiting is to have actual queer characters. Have them be out or have them be your POV characters, so at least the reader knows that they're dealing with an LGBTQIA plus person. This teenager had some interesting thoughts. I feel like in most things I read with characters like that, they don't focus a lot on their struggles with how they are seen as they are. Most people just assume that they are straight until proven otherwise if they date the opposite gender. The books don't talk about how the character deals with the struggle of not being confined into one certain category. Books with characters like that also just automatically assume that the person's identity is expressed by them liking the same gender. So this really hits home for me because I am married to a man and am assumed straight all the time. And I think it's critical to understand that a person's identity and a person's relationship are two different things. Just as a straight person doesn't stop being straight when they get married, nobody else loses their identity because of the relationship that they're in, as long as it's a healthy relationship. Being a woman with a woman does not necessarily make you a lesbian. Being a woman with a man does not necessarily make you straight. But because we are seen so much in society by our relationships, we're defined by our relationships. We check little boxes about our relationships on forums. People make assumptions. And the feelings around that are really complex. I'm not going to try to get into it right now. But I do think it's critical to understand that books should address complex thoughts and feelings. Books have the space. YouTube videos don't. At least not this video, not today. And a third teenager said, LGBTQ characters are good and all, but one of the things that irks me the most is when an LGBTQ character is solely put in there for diversity. If you put a gay character in something, then put an actual character in there, not just somebody who can be summed up by the word gay. So a character's sexuality should not be their whole story, just as a person's sexuality is not their whole story. Representation is critical, but representing LGBTQIA plus people respectfully as actual people with lives and concerns and something to add to the plot. Important character connections and character arcs. They don't have to be the main character, but they do have to be something more than a token. I'm going to link below to a great video on Stephen Partridge's channel on a similar topic. So if you enjoyed this or were hoping I would say something more that I didn't, go check it out. He's hilarious. His videos are fantastic. He does videos both on writing and on Dungeons and Dragons. So check his channel out. You won't regret it. And please leave me a comment. Tell me what you hate about the representation you've seen of bi or pan characters. Tell me if there's anything you love. Tell me what you want to see more of. And please, if you have any recommendations of books that do a great, respectful job with bi or pan representation, let me know. I want to read it. Until next time, my name is Moon Petrie, and good luck to you, however you identify.